Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. In previous lecture, we discussed order Aneura and their characteristics, and we also discussed their skin, skeleton, and muscles. In today's lecture, we will continue with respiration and other remaining topics of Aneura. So let us start with respiration first. As you know by now, amphibians use three surfaces for respiration, which includes skin, mouth, and lungs. Now, in case of Aneura, frog and toads are more dependent on lungs than on cutaneous respiration comparative to salamander. This is because there are few limitations with cutaneous respiration. Number 1. They are required to keep their skin thin and moist all the time to enhance oxygen intake. But as you know, this is not a supporting feature for terrestrial lifestyle because on land, water is limited and evaporation is always happening via skin. And second limitation is gas exchange, which is nearly constant all the time due to limited surface area and cannot be increased with increased activity. By the way, frog lungs are ventral in origin, but lie dorsal to the gut, as you can see in the diagram. They are originated from ventral side and lying on the dorsal side of the gut. However, in endurance, skin plays an important role for gas exchange, especially during winter hibernation. As you know, during hibernation, body activity is reduced and generally less evaporation of water occur from the surface. Further, during normal lung breathing, most of the carbon dioxide is released through the skin surface, whereas through the lungs, most of the oxygen is absorbed. Moreover, frog lungs are elastic sacs with inner areas subdivided into many terminal chambers called alveoli. These alveoli of frog lung is much larger than alveoli of amniote vertebrates, but still they have a smaller surface area for gas exchange comparative to higher vertebrates. During the lung evolution, the major challenge was not only the development of good vascular surface, but they also needed to develop a mechanism for moving air. Because frogs are positive pressure breathers, which means they need to fill their lungs by forcing the air into them. On the other hand, all higher vertebrate uses negative pressure system, such that on expansion of lungs, air is pulled inward by itself. Frog produces different sounds, and both male and female frogs have vocal cords. But the male vocal cord is better developed than females. As you might remember from previous lecture, that male produces mating calls during breeding season to attract females. Further, these vocal cords are in the larynx region, or also known as voice box. Neurons produce sound by passing the air back and forth over the vocal cords that is present between the lungs and the vocal sac in the mouth. As you can see in the diagram, intake of air happens via nostril and then passes over the larynx to the lungs and then move back to the larynx to produce sound, which is then amplified in the vocal pouches. These are the vocal pouches. These vocal pouches also act as resonators, thus increasing sound in males, whose primary function is to attract females. I hope you have seen that video of spring peeper in the last lecture. By the way, this is our spring peeper. Now let us discuss blood circulation of Aneura, which is a closed circulatory system of arteries, veins, capillaries, and heart, as evident in this diagram. In comparison to fish, amphibians shifted from gill to lung breathing, which unlocked many possibilities for success. but also introduced some new problems. The major success for amphibians was the elimination of gills, which was the major obstacle in the arterial blood flow. Introduction to lung breathing bring two challenges to amphibians. First challenge is to develop a new circulatory system to support lungs, which they solved by adopting pulmonary circulation. And to serve lungs, six aortic arch develop into pulmonary artery, whereas to serve heart, new pulmonary vein developed, which bring oxygenated blood to the heart. Now the second evolutionary challenge was a bit tough. It included the separation of pulmonary circulation from body circulation, such that oxygenated blood go to the body and deoxygenated blood go to the lungs. To solve this problem, double circulation was required, and it is solved by higher tetrapods by developing partition in the heart, thus forming a double pump, one for each circulation. But unfortunately, amphibians develop partial partition in the heart, such that two atria and one ventricle. So potential mixing of blood was possible there. Little mixing of blood occur when oxygenated blood and deoxygenated blood passes through spiral valve, which is responsible to maintain selective distribution. This spiral valve is present in conus arteriosus. Interestingly, the exact mechanism for blood separation in conus arteriosus is still controversial and requires further research. In case of feeding, like most of amphibian, adult frogs are carnivorous, and they feed on insects, spiders, worms, millipedes, or anything that is moving or too small to eat. Check this frog, busy in eating an earthworm, mostly for capturing their moving prey. Frog use protrusible tongue, which attaches to the prey at front end, while their posterior end remain free. This posterior end of the tongue is highly glandular and responsible to produce sticky secretions which attaches to the prey. In frog, on the roof of the mouth, teeth are present on premaxillae, maxillae, and vomer. These are the maxillary teeth and these are the vomer teeth. These teeth are not for chewing or biting, rather they use them to prevent their prey from escape. And this image is, by the way, Photoshop. They don't have such teeth in reality. Further, we know by now that frogs are carnivorous, so their digestive tract is also shorter because their food contain more energy and easily digestible with the help of enzymes. On the other hand, we have tadpole with herbivorous feeding, so their digestive tract is bit longer because they need to digest the cellulose of the plant material. Hence, anurans adapted themselves with respect to the food they eat, and in carnivorous mode, they develop enzymes to digest fat, protein, and carbohydrates. Moreover, in case of nervous system, dramatic evolutionary changes were noticed in frogs and other vertebrates as they moved to the land. Evolutionary changes include improved civilization to handle the increased need of information processing, such that each part of the tripartite brain took responsibility to handle different senses of the body. With the improved civilization, senses of smell, vision, and hearing, as well as increased demand for balance, also got improved. But this caused them the loss of independent spinal ganglia. These spinal ganglia was basically serving as mini brain in lower vertebrates for coordinating the actions like reflex behavior without involving the brain. But anyhow, even after the loss of this independence, frogs have some unique abilities. such that if you remove this head from the frog and leave this spinal cord intact, it will still perform a purposeful coordinated behavior. It is observed that without head, frog maintains a normal body posture and can accurately raise its leg to remove the disturbing material from the skin. Further, if you hold the one leg, it will use the another one. Moreover, with the evolution of nervous system, neurons evolved two senses that are highly advanced than fishes and most of the amphibians. These senses include hearing and sight. And by now, you may remember that Sicilians are blind. However, both salamanders and Sicilians also lack tympanum membrane. Further, lateral line system is present in aquatic larvae, but not in most adult, because this system is useless in land and solely responsible to detect and localize objects in water. However, this role is replaced by ear in most of the adult frogs, except few aquatic frogs. And this ear structure includes tympanum membrane, which is an obvious structure in most of the frog, like you can see in this image, and they serve as eardrum. This eardrum or large tympanum membrane pick up the airborne sounds and transmit them to inner ear through middle ear. And this middle ear is externally covered by tympanum membrane. Moreover, frog ear contain semicircular canals and similar structures of complex mammalian cochlea. But remember, these structures are present in simple form. And here is the diagram of frog ear. This is the tympanum membrane, this is the middle ear, and this is the portion of the inner ear. Mostly frog senses low frequency sounds, not usually greater than the 4000 Hz. Further, hearing of these species are commonly restricted to specific frequency range of their mating calls. For example, spring peeper can sense high frequency sounds, while bullfrog is limited to sense low frequency sound, approximately of 100 to 200 Hz. In many amphibians, vision is the dominant special sense for their daily activities. Generally, frog and toad possesses good vision, which is important to avoid predators and capture their moving prey. Further, fish eye wasn't fit for an environment and required necessary modification for land use. For land use, it was necessary to evolve lacrimal glands and eyelids to keep the eye moist, dust-free, and provide protection against injury. Moreover, cornea exposed to air became an important refractive surface for land use, as it removed burden from the lens of focusing and bending the light rays. In fishes, you might remember the moving of the lens for adjusting focus for near and distant objects. But in case of amphibians, lens at rest normally focus on distant objects and move its lens to focus on nearby objects, which is a complete different mechanism than in fishes. Further, amphibians' upper and lower eyelids also have differences. Like the upper eyelid is fixed and the lower one is attached to nictitating membrane which moves over the eye surface. The final topic of our amphibian chapter is reproduction. Students, remember, frogs and toads feed, breed, and grow during warm season only, as they are ectothermic. So after coming out of hibernation, Anurans' first desire is to breed. For this, males migrate to water resources, using their olfaction sense and start to croak to attract females. When eggs are matured, female enter the water and are clasped by male, as you can see in the diagram. This special mating position of frog and toad is known as amplexis. During amplexis, female lay eggs and male fertilize them. To increase the chance of survival, large masses of eggs are released, which anchor to vegetation mostly. Moreover, jelly layer of the eggs absorb water and become swell after fertilization. After all this process, development is very quick. Frog larvae, commonly known as tadpole, hatches from the jelly coat within 6 to 9 days, depending on the water temperature. You might remember the shape of the tadpole from previous lecture. They include head, gills, and body with a fin-like tail. Their mouth is present on ventral side with horny jaws made of keratin, helping them to scrape vegetations from hard objects. Furthermore, behind the mouth is a ventral adhesive disc that help them to attach with the objects. Additionally, the length of tadpole stage is species dependent, and this is the general life cycle of frog. For instance, leopard frog complete its metamorphosis within 3 months, while on the other hand, bullfrog take 2 to 3 years to complete the process.